it was part of that franchise. But I like the idea enough and that's a big component of why I wanted a franchise with Tommy's. And the other thing is so if you franchise with somebody, you ultimately become kind of a partner with them. And the reason why I like Tommy's is because they're absolutely they're car wash nuts. They're fanatics. And, they try to think about anything and everything to improve the industry. And so they've created what I think is the best model for washing cars. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to partner with them and become a franchisee. And just so you all know, franchisees are, McDonald's is a franchise, Panera Bread is a franchise. There are a lot of retail shops that are out there that are franchises. It's a way for people to grow, their business. The other thing is one thing that I learned at Davenport is Davenport invested in a lot of their clients. They invested money with CarMax, and CarMax. Is everybody familiar with CarMax? So CarMax is a retail store that sells used cars, right? So when they came about, actually they spun off from Circuit City. Circuit City went bankrupt. They were trying to sell DVRs, which never worked, or didn't work. So they decided they had to come up with a new idea. So they came up with CarMax, and what CarMax does is they decided we got to figure out a way to capitalize on the opportunity to sell used cars. Because what happened is the whole market was fragmented, which means it was all owned by mom and pop shops. So like little individual owners that had used car lots, and everybody hated going to buy a used car because you always had to negotiate the price, and it was always a disaster, and nobody, it was a bad experience. So CarMax came along and said, okay, well look, why don't we create a really good business model to sell used cars? We're going to call it CarMax, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a no haggle price. So we're going to set the price, and people can come in, they're either going to say yes or no. What that does is it takes out all the anxiety of people that would not want to go to one of those mom and pop and negotiate a price, right? Makes it a lot easier. So that business model worked, and they started it right here in Richmond, Virginia. It did great, right? So once you develop a really good business model, from that point forward, all you really need to do is you need to go find different lots, different markets to put that CarMax store in. And that's another reason that I was drawn to the car wash business, because if I could find the perfect model to wash cars, I could expand that so it was scalable, right? So I could just find the perfect model, and then the next step is I got to go find different lots, buy those lots, do the same thing. It's replicable, it's scalable, and it's an easy way to grow your business. So so that's what we're doing. We're trying to build 2 a year, and so far so good.
So you mentioned earlier trying to franchise more Tommy Expresses. So what are your long-term goals for Tommy Express?
We're just going to keep building them. As long as the business model continues to work, then we're always looking for new pieces of property to buy and to build Tommy's on. The other thing is in terms of just long term, it's an option that we like to have in our arsenal, is that whenever we buy a Tommy's, we're not leasing the land, we're buying the land. So we own the land. And then we also own the operating company and the building itself. So the nice thing about that is we have a business that cash flows. It makes money, and it makes enough money to pay the owners of the business, but it also pays off the debt that we're borrowing money from to pay off that land. And we borrowed we have a 15-year loan is typically how we do it. And so after 15 years, we'll own that land, and that land was basically purchased through the profit of operating a car wash, right? So the nice thing about that is after 15 years, we own that piece of property, and we also own a cash flow, an operating business that cash flows, generates profit. And so, when you're looking at an investment, you want to look at not only as how much money is it going to earn, but also of the asset that you own, which is the land in this case. What's that going to do over time? And we look at trends, and we think in general that owning land is a good investment too, because it's going to appreciate in value over time, right? And then, right now we're planning on staying and opening, more Tommy car washes. But if we ever wanted to, we had the flexibility to sell the operating company to somebody and still own the land, and then we could just charge a lease, like a rent, to the new operator. And they may decide to tear down the wash and put something else in there, like a Starbucks, but we'd still get our lease payment, right? And so it's another way to diversify and own an asset that can still cash flow for you.
So that was our last question, and now we're going to open it up to any questions if any of y'all have any.
Yes.
So I feel like maybe this is right, but I feel like around this area, this community, the norm is kind of to go into accounting or like a lawyer or something like that.
Right.
So how did you kind of break out of that? Do you have any advice for anyone?
Yeah, the advice is to try different things, because you're not going to know until you get into it. At least that's for me. I mean, maybe you can read some books and have an understanding for it, and maybe you can understand a discipline and maybe enjoy that more than other things. But my advice to you is to try different things. And I don't care what it is. I mean, get an internship at whatever. Whatever you think you might have an interest in. There are tons of nonprofits out there that be looking for work. And a nonprofit, all that means is that they're in a different, they pay taxes differently. So, or they may not pay taxes at all, but they're still a business, right? So, and all businesses have, particular facets of, different things that they need to do. I mean, I'm washing cars, but I've learned a ton about what lawyers do. In my work that I'm doing, because I'm reading contracts all the time. I'm negotiating contracts with other people, so I learn a little bit to something about law work. So you'll never know, just because don't let the just know that there are lots of different components within a named business that you can branch out and understand different things.
Will?
Do you plan on moving outside of the central Virginia kind of area, like maybe east or west to Norfolk or something like that? Yeah,
that is a good question. Yes, we do. Right, the idea right now, the strategy is to build out the Richmond market, and then once we build that out, we'll expand to look into Fredericksburg, Williamsburg, Norfolk, Harrisonburg, throughout.
Any other questions? Right.
I was just wondering, what helps you determine if a car wash is, or a specific location is going to be successful?
Yeah, good question. So the things that you look at is you look at how many rooftops there are, right? So you're trying to assess what the demand is for people needing to wash their cars. So you look at how many rooftops are within a 3-5 mile radius. You'd also look at vehicles per day that come across your property. So we're not going to buy a piece of property that's on a road that doesn't have any traffic, right? So we're always going to be looking for a highly trafficked road and lots of rooftops around it. And that's what we've done. We got, we have one, the one over by the Diamond, which is adjacent. The other thing is we like being next to a frequent retail location that's visited frequently, like a Wawa. So the next one that we're opening is next to a Wawa. It's near the Diamond. It should open in about 2 weeks, and we're excited about getting that one going. But site selection is critical. I mean, you buy I've heard people you buy a bad site, your business might not do so well. So it's a really important component of the business model.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Worrell.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Glad to be here.